Learning. My name is Dr. April Willis, and I'm so excited to be on here with you today. I'm also honored to have two of Proximity's finest teachers on with me as panelists today. We will be hearing from Maestra Regina Salinas and Ms. Crystal Dempsky, who are both going to share their experiences on how they are keeping students motivated and engaged in the virtual classroom. We're also going to make a few connections to the in-person classroom as well if you are still living that brick and mortar life out there as educators. We are so excited that we're going to have the opportunity to chat with you all for approximately the next 30 minutes or so. I know we always reserve these webinars for 1 hour, but we only give it that extra buffer time in case we have extensive question and answer. So at that point, we do encourage you to please drop your question and answer into the chat box. We do have a moderator on the back end that's going to be monitoring those, letting us know when those questions come in so that you can hear directly from the experts. They are here to help you today. This is a thought leadership session. We are not selling you anything. We just want to talk about some best practices and hopefully give you some tools and resources to go back and implement in your own classroom immediately. I also want to encourage you to stick around till the very end because as you probably read in our invitations, we are going to be having a drawing for an Amazon gift card at the very end of this. So you do have to be present to win. We are thankful for the people who are on board with us right now, and we do hope to continue to see more of you join us and stick around till the very end of the webinar. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists and let them give brief introductions about who they are, what they teach, and how long they've been teaching. We'll start with Maestra Salinas.
Oh, thank you. First, thank you so much for having me here. And I teach Spanish, my native language. I am native Spanish speaker, and I have about 25 years teaching, and I love teaching. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on. We're excited to have you today. And Miss D, how about your background?
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Crystal Dempsky. I live in the Atlanta area. I've been teaching, I think this is my 11th or 12th year of teaching. This is my first year with Proximity Learning as far as virtual, but I did virtual teaching a few years ago. I teach social studies and language arts to middle grades and up. So I have fourth graders, a lot of eighth graders this year, and I also have high school. So I teach a variety of classes throughout the day with students in Maryland, Texas, Tennessee, and New Mexico. So it's an exciting day. I love it. And I just really enjoy being a teacher. And I'm grateful for the experience of getting to be in the webinar today.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Let's just jump right in. So I'm going to start our presentation today by just asking you questions. We're just going to go through each slide as a separate question. Feel free to chime in, but I'm curious to know, what are your favorite engagement strategies to keep students on track? I'm actually going to start with Senora Salinas on this one. So if you'll let us know what your favorite engagement strategies are.
Oh, thank you. I like to establish good communication with my students. I am aware that some students are not very easy, but I always try to do it my best effort with all my students, because I know that when you have good communication with your students, they feel supported. And I like that they feel comfortable and welcome in my class. And I like to start with greeting them. How are you? How do you feel today? And I ask them to tell me on private message if they don't feel good. And this way I can be aware that they don't feel 100%. I like to greet them with all the time with a smile, and they feel welcome in my class. They engage immediately with the bell work, something that we did one day before. And I push them to participate all the time. I like to set high expectations with all my students. And I like to tell them, some of us, you will discover that you have the ability to learn a language, but some of us, we don't have it. And we have to practice a lot. And I know, I am aware that learning another language, it is not easy, but I know that you can do it. And I am here to support you. I try that they feel all the time welcome, and I like to observe my students a lot. And when I observe that they are struggling, I am there to support them. And
yeah, it sounds like you do a lot of relationship building. So it is fundamental in education that we are building those relationships. And I do feel like sometimes people wonder, how do you build a relationship in a virtual environment when I can't high five my students? I can't hug them. I can't talk to their parents in the drive line. Like, there are so many things that we can't do when it comes to communication and building relationships the traditional way, but that doesn't mean we can't do it at all. It just means we need to get a little bit more creative about it. So I love your idea of just drop me a private chat and let me know how it's going, for them to feel like they have that direct communication line to you. I think that would definitely go a long way. Thanks for sharing those. All right, Misty, I know you would like for us to take a look at these strategies that you shared. We will be sharing this deck as well, and you'll have access to Misty's strategies. So do you want to just talk us through these?
Yes. So this is sort of my slideshow that I start class with. So you can see, first of all, that it's personalized to the school. So, one of the things I realized right away is I missed that interaction. So how do I become a team member for the school? So I do some research on the front end. What is their mascot? Where do they live? Are they suburb? Is it rural? I kind of find out, like, I look up the state park nearby, or what is their kind of community thing. So Mattawoman Middle School is a suburb, sort of Washington, D.C., a little bit out. So I start out by, knowing that about them. The second slide is my SEL daily check-in. So with this one, this is actually my dog, Priska. She's very spoiled, rat terrier. So this is one of my favorite strategies to give them an opportunity to be honest about their feelings. So this is social emotional learning. I have a variety of these, everything from Godzilla to Mario to cats, all kinds of things. I do this as well. We all put it in the Zoom chat box. And then what I've noticed is over time, they become so much more comfortable to share why they chose that. They send me private messages to say, I'm sad today, my cat passed away, or I failed the test in geometry. And so it starts to really build this rapport and community where they can say, I don't feel great. And we want to acknowledge that that's okay, that you might not be happy, smile all the time. So it's a good model. And then I will encourage them to say, it's okay to feel grumpy right now, but, try not to stay that way the whole day. So it's just a fun part of it, and they really love it. The last slide that I do is, this is my bell ringer or daily journal. So when I do this in language arts, I actually write along with them. So I have a notebook, we set a timer, and we all write together. And this is probably one of their favorite things. They love these. I pick crazy stuff. This one has been really popular. This is literally today's. So we have had some animated discussions about having kids, not having kids, having fur kids. And they love to share their opinions about raising children, traditions they want to carry on. So all of these build a sense of family and community. I do a lot of shout outs, and I try to show them that I'm working. So when it's quiet work time for them, I say, I'm working right now as well, grading your work. So we're all in a community of working. It's not you work and I sit here. It's I'm working too. These are my tasks. And then I will kind of prove that by saying, oh, Billy, I just saw you turned in that assignment. Great job. It's sort of a subtle reminder that I am actively grading, and you want that shout out and that feedback. I'll give that to you. I also think the specific feedback is super important in this. So in Canvas, when I go in to grade an assignment, I'll put, I love how you did this. To get extra points, maybe do this next time. So make it specific, and then show that you read it by saying, I also enjoy this. So today I graded one, and I put, I also enjoy roasting marshmallows over the fire. So just really showing that you're listening. And I take notes all the time during class in my notebook. So-and-so's got a volleyball tournament. Jenny is going to get a new dog Friday. And then I can ask them the next class. So it's just about really listening and honing in and showing them that you're a community.
Oh, I love that. I, by the way, dropped in the chat that I'm feeling a number 1 today. If anybody of our attendees or our panelists want to drop in the chat where you're at, we would just love to kind of see where everybody, what you all are feeling. I'd also really love what you said about connecting with them by showing them that you're reading. what they're submitting to you. I think that's so important because it gives that human element, because when you are a teacher who is projected or live streamed into a classroom, that can feel robotic perhaps to children because they don't get to hug you. They don't get to see you. And it does just like, are you a program or are you a real person back there? And so for you to be able to be like, hey, I love roasting marshmallows. You know, I have my own family. We go camping. We do some of the things you do. That human element, I think, can absolutely help people make that connection to you, make the students feel like they are part of your community, of your classroom community. All right, we got some 3s, some 7s, an 11. I love it. 7, are you a little cynical? Are you kind of skeptical about what's going on? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for humoring us with that. Great strategies. Thank you for sharing. All right, we're going to go back into the presentation. And the next question we have is, how do positive relationships with parents or guardians facilitate positive relationships with students? So we were talking about the importance of having relationships in a virtual classroom, even though they look a little different. So how are you doing that with parents or guardians? And then how does that help you with students? So we're going to go to Ms. Salinas next.
Okay, thank you. Parent and teacher communication. When we establish a positive communication with parent and teacher, the students benefit. Neuroscience tells us and show us that positive student relations are fundamental for success. And if there is not a good relationship between the teacher and the student, it is unlikely that they will learn what we intend to teach them, and they will not be way to support them, because it is so hard for the students. With positive relation, we show our students that we support them. And if the students feel supported, it's more likely that they engage in learning and have better academic outcomes, and of course, fewer behavioral problems. I think that we should work like as a team. And when we, in personal, I have this experience and working with parents very close when I had the opportunity to be like academic director. And I have a very good results to build a good team, and we are in the same team and we choose to support each other. And I think that is fundamental.
For sure.
Fundamental, and the students receive huge benefits when we create a very good relation with parents.
Agreed. I think there's an accountability measure there as well. Whenever we've got the parents and guardians involved in it, when we don't get to put ourselves physically next to children like we would if we noticed they were having a hard time in class, we might go stand next to them to redirect them. We don't get to do that when you're virtual. And so I do think if you have a strong relationship with parents or guardians, they can sometimes support some of the at-home measures or some of the behavioral issues that might be coming up, and let them know that you might not be able to hug your teacher, but your teacher still cares about you, and we're working on it as a team to hold you accountable for your learning. Misty, what do you think about this?
I agree completely with Ms. Salinas about the fundamental. It is so important to make it an us instead of a I want this and I want that. So I try to frame things, because we have instructional facilitators in the classroom. It's a person in the brick and mortar building. So I will frame things as, Miss Smith and I want you to do this, Miss Jordan and I want you to do this. And then I will also add in, if I know the principal's name, I try to know their name, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so want this. And then I will say our families. So I try to make it that it's an us thing. It's a village. It's not, I need you to do this assignment for me. No, it's everybody wants you to do it. And I think it's important to remember that student families look very differently than they probably did when we were kids. So I will try to mix it up. I'll say moms and dads, families. Sometimes I'll say your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, whoever you stay with, that's the person that's in your corner, the adult that takes care of you, and I'll put it in different ways to show that I'm aware that everybody's situation looks different and that we're all working towards a common goal. We all want you to be successful. And I often tell them that a teacher's greatest moment is really to run into a kid or get, see something on the internet that they are doing great in their life. They've won a scholarship, they got married, like that's what we want to see. And so when I say things like that, again, I say we all want to see that. So in this context, Miss Salinas and I really want you to have the career that you choose. So I think it's just making sure they know that everyone that's in their corner as an adult is for their success. And it's a united front, not a divide and conquer, especially with middle school. They try to divide and conquer.
Oh, for sure. I love the inclusiveness in your statements, though, and that is so important right now. We're hearing a lot more of the emphasis around showing children that we can, like, schools are inclusive, we are equity rooted, we are driven to have diverse environments that make everybody feel welcome and celebrated. So how do you guys implement restorative justice practices in a virtual environment? We'll start with either of you. Who has something they want to talk about as it pertains to restorative justice?
I can start on this one because I was thinking about it because it's a little bit different in brick and mortar to virtual. So as you may know, restorative justice is a way to help with the behaviors. Studies have shown it helps lower behaviors. So the example that I can think of that I saw in a brick and mortar school was some students did some destruction of property to the boys' restroom. So they met with the students, the parents came in and they met with the custodians, and those students did a work day to assist the custodians in repairing the damage and then helping to keep the school beautiful. So it was instead of you're suspended and you're a terrible person, it was a way to talk about the conversation, how their actions made things more challenging for the staff who keep up the school and things like that. So that's kind of what it looks like in brick and mortar. So in virtual, it's a little bit different. So I think it's about building trust so that the kids know that if they tell you, for example, with it being virtual, there is a tendency to go out and Google answers and find the answers and look for somebody who posted the test. So if a student is going to admit that, I don't want to seem like this big ogre, like, you did what? It's avoiding overreacting, and it's sort of asking, well, why did you do that? Or what were your reasons? And then you might find out something surprising, like that they just moved, or they just lost a loved one, or they've been sick, or someone has been in the hospital. So sometimes rather than thinking, the worst, they just didn't want to do it, there could be a very valid reason why they were trying to get the answers from another site. I think you want to make sure that the fellowship stays and that you don't humiliate them. And sometimes it's about, with one of the things I use is the waiting room. So if someone is having a moment or maybe being inappropriate or putting up an inappropriate background, I'll put them in the waiting room for a moment, let the TA know they can kind of guide the class, and then I can step into the waiting room or send them a message and then kind of figure out, what's going on. And I think sometimes with students like that, I try to look at it as this student wants to be a leader. They're just going about it maybe the wrong way. So I had a student recently who was doing something along those lines, and he kept interrupting me. So I sent him a message in Canvas, just welcome. I'm so, grateful that you've welcomed me to the class. And now he's like my biggest advocate. He's totally on my team. He says hello to me, goodbye to me. He tells me he loves me. I tell him I love him. I mean, it's totally different now. And it's not to toot my own horn. I think it's that he really wants to be a leader. He just didn't know how to do that. So instead of just getting angry and thinking, oh, this student is so annoying and I don't want to go to fifth period because of this student, think of it as maybe he's a kid and he doesn't know what leadership looks like. So how can I model that?
And don't worry about tooting your own horn. You're here as the expert. We want to learn from you. Tell us what works. That's what we want to apply. All right. Maestra Salinas, do you have anything to add to this?
I agree with Ms. Crystal that it is the best way to deal with this situation and to establish respect. That respect is very, very important. I will always respect you, because as Ms. D said, we have to model our students. They are kids, they are teenagers. And if we are going to get angry, I think that it is not the option. We have to show that we are here to support them. And if you are in a bad mood, bad day, or you don't feel good, what can I do to help you? I am here to help you. And if we show care, we have better results.
Agreed. That's wonderful. Well, what's something you wish someone would have prepared you for when you first started virtual teaching? You guys are here sharing your expertise right now. We probably have some first-year teachers or people who are even thinking about going into virtual teaching. What have you learned? What do you wish somebody would have told you before you started? Let's start with Maestra Salinas.
Okay, before I start here in virtual, I had experience teaching in virtual, but I think that being well prepared, a lot of practice, because we need skills and online. I think that practice and checklists. What do I have to do before I start the class? Do I have this? And I think that this, in my personal, I helps a lot to practice and do it again before I start. And the checklist, I publish this.
Yeah, the checklist is a great idea because there are so many things that you can forget until you're in the moment. You're like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to bring this. I left it in the other room, because you feel like you're in your house oftentimes and everything's so accessible, but you have to bring it like right here so you don't get out of your desk. That is a great point. I love it. Misty, do you have anything you wish someone would have prepared you for?
I think just a reminder that I can't fully observe the body language. I get about this much, right? So there's a whole lot of other body language that I'm missing. So as far as like slumped over, maybe things that indicate that a student's depressed or having a bad day, I can't see all of that. So again, I think throwing my assumptions out the door and thinking, I can't see everything. I don't know that they've not just been scolded in the hallway and told that, we're calling your mama. I have no idea what just happened. I don't know what their bus ride was like. I don't know what happened when they walked home yesterday. So I try to think, if they're not acting like this is the greatest lesson they've ever seen, I try to remind myself not to take it as any kind of slight on me. They could feel embarrassed or nervous. Some of them are very hesitant to turn on their cameras. So I think I have to remember that it's not really about me. It could be that their hair is not the way they want it. They maybe don't have their favorite outfit. I've even had students, send me a message saying, I'm having kind of a bad hair day, or I didn't get dressed. I'm in my pajamas. And when they're sometimes, at home if they're quarantining. So I think it's just realizing that it's going to look different. And I need to be flexible to, realize that I might not be able to look around that scan where you can kind of see if kids are getting it. It's going to look differently. So I need to use my reaction tools. I need to use the chat. I just need to constantly check in. What questions do you have for me? And then even, just pointing out if I make a mistake. When I see a typo on my slides, I actually point it out. It's the English teacher in me. So I say, oh, typo alert. I totally do that to be transparent that I'm not perfect. And when you turn in something, if it has a typo, because kids will write me, I'm so sorry that, I didn't do this. And I think, no worries. I had a typo too. So it's just a way to kind of, remember that it's going to look a little bit different, but there's a lot of awesome things too.
I love it. It sounds like you learned so much, and by being open and receptive to almost this own like self-constructive criticism, like, hey, I recognize that this is something I should be doing differently, or, this is something that I didn't have to think about before, and now I have to be aware of it. I love that you are that self-aware, that you're able to recognize these things and point them out for our future virtual teachers. Hopefully y'all are taking notes. All right. When students exhibit a lack of motivation or even isolation, how do you combat that? Because we're talking about this community feel, and it sounds like we've already gone over a few strategies. Is there anything new that we haven't heard from you already on how you try to continue to motivate students if they might be isolated?
Do you want me to
Sure.
answer? Okay, thank you. Okay, now I think that it is very, very important in my case that now I am teaching Spanish. And it is not easy to learn a language, and it is very easy to forget it if they don't practice every day. And I am trying since the beginning, and at this moment I am working with high school and middle school, and I ask questions. Why are you interested in learning Spanish? And this helps me to know if they are interested or not. And I try to, with them, tell them about all the benefits that they have when you are bilingual. And I have some videos very, very interesting. How works your brain when you learn another language. And I let them know that you will have a lot of advantage if you learn another language, if you are bilingual. I am aware that you have to make an effort, but we are going to practice and we can get fun, because when you learn a language, you have the possibility to prepare, to plan fun activities. Okay, let's sing together in Spanish. Let's move, and I can do that while you are learning a language. At the same time, I am trying to push them to practice. If you don't have the ability, that doesn't mean that I have to give up. Okay, I am here to support you. Let's practice. The same was with me. It is hard for me to learn English. And if I can do it, you can do it. Let's do it together. And I try to establish all the time high expectations. I know that you are very smart, but at this moment, you are confused. Let's go back and start again. And when I see them like they are very like overwhelmed or something like that, not good day, I try to add fun activities. I show them a video of very famous and important people in the United States that they learn Spanish and how they talk, and observe. They make mistakes. It is normal to make mistakes when it is not your language.
I love that you're connecting it to the real world. I think that's the big takeaway that I'm hearing is when students are showing a lack of motivation, oftentimes it's because they have that, like, what does this matter? When will I ever use this? That's when you start to see students both in the virtual world and in brick and mortar, they withdraw because they are no longer interested. They have lost all engagement with the connection, with the subject at hand. So when you can connect it to the real world, they're like, oh, this does matter. This is when I'm going to use it. I think that's really helpful. Thanks for sharing. Misty, do you have anything you'd like to add to this one?
Yes, I have a few quick tips. One of the things that I will do is think out loud or do an assignment step by step. So sometimes I think we realize if we were to read through Canvas assignments or anything that we create like a day later, we might realize that it's not clear. Again, the English teacher comes out, clarity is a big concept that we teach. So I will actually take one of the orientation assignments and say, okay, it says to post, what is in this picture, or what is this webinar, assignment, or what am I supposed to do with my webcam, and kind of think through it. And sometimes I'll throw little things in there because I know that there's this stream of consciousness going on because they've got a million other things. So I'll be like, oh, I'm hungry. I wonder when lunch is, just to kind of elicit like a chuckle, as I know that you're not like, oh, assignment A is my favorite assignment, that you do have other thoughts. Are you going to see your friends at, lunch or whatever? So I try to kind of show them step by step. I challenge myself to reread the assignments, especially if I create them, to look at them for clarity. And I find sometimes that I left out a step. Today, I asked the 8th graders, what should I tell the teachers and principals and educators who will be in the webinar? And several of them said to make the assignments easier. Well, obviously, they were 8th graders. That's what I would expect. But when I picked it apart a little bit, what it really was is the school that this was coming from. The students, many of them speak Spanish, Navajo, and English, or a mixture. So really, I think what that was, when I started to ask what that meant, is really some of the clarity is not there for people who are learning different languages or trying to access this new format of virtual learning. So it was really insightful to get that from those 8th graders to say, okay, I need to think about how this translates, and I need to choose my verbs and nouns and make sure that it's clear to them. So I think it's just really looking at how clear is it, looking back at the notes, when they do get an assignment turned in, giving them the feedback to say, great, you turned that in, your grade, went up. So just letting them know that you're there for them and that you want to see them be successful, and asking, send them a message. How can I help you with this specific assignment if you see that it's late? So I'll do that as a strategy as well.
Those are such great tips. I love that. Thanks so much for sharing those with us. So we've talked a lot about building relationships with families, with the students, but how do you build relationships with your colleagues so that you don't feel isolated? You are oftentimes doing this at home by yourself. How do you keep the connection alive with colleagues? So we're going to breeze through this question pretty quickly, and then we're going to go to the next one. So if you just have a sentence or two to share with us about this.
Okay, do you want me to start? Okay, I try to keep in communication with my colleagues. I love that. And I want to say that I am very happy in proximity because I have a very good team. And my specialist is, I feel very supported. And it is amazing because even if we are teaching in virtual environment, I am very, very close to my colleagues.
That's
I
so good.
communicate all the time and immediately we have the support and I feel very, very good. I am surprised because sometimes we cannot do it in brick and mortar. And now in a virtual environment, I can say I have a team.
That's awesome. It seems like sometimes communication's faster because everybody is glued to their computer all
Yes.
the time. So everybody
Yes.
can respond quickly. Good to know. Misty, do you have anything to add?
We just recently this year put in Tribe into our PLI Connect. So I've started using that. It's a good way to share feedback and ideas. I like Google Chat. I use email. I have some people that I text. And then we have our monthly PLI meetings. We just had one that was costume party. And so it was a combination. So it was very fun to get to see people. You get to see their pets, their kids, and then just joining professional organizations, looking for opportunities to grow your content knowledge. So I'm excited to be part of the Teacher Advisory Council for the Constitution Center. The cohort just started, so it's totally new and I just got accepted. So that's going to give me an opportunity to meet colleagues outside of proximity and then maybe, bring some of those people over to our side and, help them see how we're doing things in virtual. So I think it's just, being caught up with everything and just looking at your social media and, staying in contact.
Wonderful. All such good tips. It kind of makes me laugh a little bit when we hear all the ways we can communicate with people. And there's a joke that we have infinitely more ways to communicate than things we should actually be saying. There's so many ways to reach out. All right. Well, what professional development session or topic have you learned the most from, and that you might even recommend to other virtual educators, even if they can't watch or do the same one you did? Is there a topic that really stands out to you and you're like, this, if you're going to look into anything when it comes to virtual education, learn this thing? What would that be for you, Misty?
Well, that's hard to pick just one because there's so many. I would say certainly the vendor provided things like Nearpod, Google, other ones that are provided by the vendors who make those have been really helpful. But as far as working with students, I have really grown from the trauma-informed models and social emotional learning, mental health type things. So trauma-informed care in brief is just a way to realize that trauma affects students. Probably 1 in 3 students have experienced some type of trauma by the time they're 13 or 14 years old. So realizing what that looks like and how that affects the student's brain and how they may interact and how they may struggle with their learning. I have worked in an alternative school and in some inner city schools. So this was very helpful in realizing that my students had way bigger problems than turning in their homework in second period. And that informed my teaching practices to be accepting of that. They could be caregivers, they could be walking to school a long way and various other things. So I would say anything related to trauma-informed care, mental health support, teaching social skills, those types of things. I've worked with a lot of students with autism on the spectrum. So all of those things kind of play in together. So anything with those terms in it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That is definitely some hot topic stuff right now. We're hearing that both, like you mentioned, virtual environment, brick and mortar environment, everywhere we go, like we've got to reach the students mentally and emotionally before we can actually start teaching them academic stuff. If they don't feel like they're being well served and that they've got some issues that are preventing them from being 100% there, that's not gonna help anybody. So we definitely need to meet them by addressing those social emotional issues and trauma-informed learning. All right, Regina, what do you have for us?
Okay, I agree with Crystal. Social and emotional learning is one of my favorite courses that I have taken. And also I use character strong and I like it a lot because you talk about the respect, to being kind, to be grateful, and also managing student behavior with positive behavior support. I love this part. And also components of great teaching and student engagement strategies and online teaching strategies. I think that these have helped me a lot.
That's so good. What I love as kind of a trend between what I heard from both of you, you did not talk about your content areas at all. You talked about the ways that we reach students and grow relationships with them. And that is absolutely, I think, where a lot of people, you're already the expert in your field. That's why you're a teacher. You know what you know and you do it well. So now it's all of these other like external factors that we really have to hone in on so that we can clearly communicate and make a difference in those students' lives. All right, friends, this is our last question. What teaching strategies do you see in the virtual classroom that are working incredibly well? And are there areas of growth that you notice are starting to rise to the top for educators in a virtual environment? In other words, what are we doing really well? And what are some things we should really be working on improving? So we're going to start with Ms. Salinas on this one.
Okay, thank you. I like that Kahoot. My students like a lot Kahoot, and it is like a reward. And because sometimes they have to repeat and repeat again. And I try that they to develop the 4 skills because they have to talk, to read, to write, and sometimes they are in the mood and sometimes no. And I have these kind of activities because if I see them that they are not like very good, I said, okay, we are going to practice together. And if you answer the bell work in 3 minutes, we are going to play today. And now they change the mood and I like a lot Kahoot. Also, I use a lot virtual maps because we have to talk about the 21 Spanish speaking countries. And I love this because they live that they are there. Oh, we can go this place. And they are like so excited that all the countries that they can visit.
Like a virtual field trip.
Yes, yes, they love that. Oh, Miss Salinas, we want to travel together. And they are very, very excited sometimes. And I have to go again back to, but Kahoot, virtual maps, Nearpod, and all these helps me a lot in the class.
Is there anything that you notice we probably need to work on? What are the areas of improvement as they relate to virtual instruction?
Misty?
Yes. Oh, your turn. Is there anything that rises to the top for you that we just need to keep working on it? It doesn't feel like we've perfected it yet.
I think that I try to be on track all the time and push my students and changing activities and relaxing. And I think that I don't have anything else to add. I think that I am trying to mix activities that sometimes relax and sometimes that they have the opportunity to talk and to be excited. In a Spanish language, we have the opportunity that they have to talk because they have to practice. And I work like teams. And I said, how I am going to do this in virtual, and works perfect because I have teams and I said, okay, we are going to do this. And I send phrases in Spanish and tell me how do you say it in English. And they are very excited. We can use some activities that we use in brick and mortar here in virtual too.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing those strategies. Misty, what's working well? What do we need to work on?
Well, one of the things I keep reminding myself is that these kids probably could break the internet or build it. I mean, they're so tech savvy. So keeping that in mind, I can talk to them in a different way than I might talk to a parent who's trying to attend like a Zoom session. So they pretty much can get into Nearpod in like 2 seconds. They're in there, they've got it. So that's a good thing. Now, I have special education students too that may take a little bit longer to get in, but it's great that they know these things. They will send me information. Have you ever heard of this platform? Did you see that this app came out? So they have things to share as well. So I love that they're very into technology. I had a student literally today when I asked, what would you like me to share? She wrote that she liked having virtual learning, that she felt more comfortable personally being in a Zoom classroom. So that's excellent. The fact that she feels comfortable to tell us as teachers, and then the fact that she has learned to be savvy in this environment. So I think the technology piece is working really well. Things like Nearpod, Quiz-Is, Kahoot, Quizlet, Jamboard. There's about 1 million different ones that are really great. The areas for growth, I would say, We just have to constantly remind ourselves it's not brick and mortar. We can't lament that we had this project that we held on to with bloody fingernails. Oh, I can't do my project. Like, that's okay. We can't do the project. You got to do something different. I think we have to let that go, what we used to do, and that they would look at us and we would see that they all thought we were just, amazing or whatever. You might not get that in virtual. They're nervous. They are self-conscious about being on camera. They don't want to appear that they didn't know something or they mispronounced it or they made a mistake. So I think a lot of people that reach out in my circle that are new to this, they tell me they struggle with feeling like the students aren't interested, but there's little hints that they are. So today a student kept sending me messages telling me all about his dogs because of Priska, my dog, being on that SEL chart. So the fact that he's doing that, I have to translate in my brain that is showing that he's engaged. I can't see him smiling or raising his hand or jumping up to help me, but I know that he wanted me to know about his dogs and that he's going to raise them and they're going to sell them and, all this kind of thing. I think one other strategy that works well, I forgot to mention, is to have an assistant teacher. They absolutely go nuts for this. So I will have someone be my assistant. I will make them co-host. They will share their screen instead of me sharing. And it is so funny. Even your kid who is your most behavior issue kid will all of a sudden become so professional, and they will be like, right, they will literally pull out the annotation tools and like put arrows and say what you're talking about. It blew me away how they can like become the assistant and they feel so proud. And this has worked with every age. So totally do the assistant. And it's awesome. They love it.
That's so good. I love it. Well, you guys, thank you both so much for being with us today. We learned so much from you. We hope everybody on the webinar found the information that Maestra Salinas and Miss D had to share to be something that maybe you were able to get a little nugget of goodness from and will hopefully be able to implement in your classroom. We encourage you to type if you have any questions right now in the chat. We are definitely here to answer those questions for you. We also have all of our emails on the slide right now, and please feel free, if you'd rather just reach out to us individually, feel free to do so. Also, it is time to announce the winner of the gift card. So we had our moderator pull the winner, and I'm going to announce that the winner is Lynn Bailing Hughes. Lynn, you have won the gift card today. Yay. So we will be in touch with you after this webinar to make sure that you get all the information you need for that gift card. Again, Maestra Salinas, Miss D, it was a pleasure. Thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to share with us some of your wisdom. We're so excited to have learned from you and spoken with you today. And we are going to hopefully see you all at our next proximity learning webinar next month. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye, Miss Salinas. Bye, April.
Bye, Miss D.
See you later.
Bye-bye, Dr. April. Thank you.